Hi, everybody.
Hello.
We're going to get started here. I'm going to take it. Is this too loud?
No.
Okay. We're going to get started here. I'm going to take a couple minutes for some opening remarks, and then Rabbi Alush will be doing his presentation. Let's all first please silence our cell phones. Look, Rabbi Alush, I have your microphone.
Yeah, it's a nice upgrade.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Jewish University of Scottsdale. My name is Amy Kahn, and together with Rabbi Alush, we have organized the Jewish University of Scottsdale, which operates under the umbrella organization of Meetup.com. Meetup.com organizes offline group meetings in various localities around the world. Meetup.com allows members to find and join groups unified by a common interest, such as religion, politics, books, pets, sports, hobbies, and so forth. On Meetup.com, there's a listing of over 13 Jewish groups here in the Valley and over 400 Jewish groups worldwide. When you become a member of the Jewish University of Scottsdale on the Meetup.com site, and there is no charge to join, you'll be enjoying 4 benefits. 1, you'll receive advance notices of our meetings. 2, you'll be notified of any schedule changes. 3, you can pay for your ticket in advance with a credit card. And 4, you can connect with other members. If you want to register to receive those benefits, then just Google Jewish University of Scottsdale and you'll get the link to the site. The goal of our meetup here is to connect as a vibrant community while enriching our individual spiritual lives. We warmly welcome you whether you're a member of a congregation or are unaffiliated. The title of Rabbi Alush's presentation tonight is Living a Life of Nobility and Purpose, 3 Indispensable Secrets from an Ancient Jewish Blessing. Rabbi Alush is a well-respected and deeply loved rabbi, a sought-after lecturer, and an author of many essays on the Jewish faith, mysticism, and social criticism. Throughout the year in this meetup, he will speak on a multitude of compelling topics that are of significant interest to us as individuals and as a Jewish community. He is the head rabbi at Congregation Beth Tefillah in Scottsdale, where he resides with his wife and 8 children. Besides his impressive academic pedigree, he is richly cultural, having lived in France, where he was born, South Africa, Israel, and Italy. He's fluent in English, Hebrew, French, and Italian. He received his rabbinic ordination in Milan, Italy in 1999. In March 2013, Rabbi Alush was listed in the foreword as one of America's 36 most inspiring rabbis who are shaping 21st century Judaism. After Rabbi Alush's presentation, we'll have some Q&A and then some sweets in the back, desserts. If you're arriving late and have not yet silenced your cell phone, please do so now. And let's all give a warm welcome to Rabbi Pinchas Alush.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
If we are going to continue this, I must say that we're going to have to divide or cut off completely my biography. I feel it's more like a eulogy than a biography. So it's still under construction. And after 120 years, we can think about it. But first of all, welcome everyone. It's really a pleasure having you all tonight. I have to start just with a thought. I wasn't expecting to start with this thought, but I just came from a Shiva service after the family was sitting Shiva every night this week and a part of last week. Today they concluded the service. And I don't know, a thought erupted in my mind because it's quite fascinating. Each time I go to a funeral, I'm sure you have the same experience. Each time I go to a Shiva house, you only hear good, positive things about the deceased. And then you ask yourself, well, where are all the crooks? Where are all the shlim muzzles? Where are they? Have they disappeared? Or they stop after death? Is that what happens? Do they just change, turn into angels? But I think the answer is very simple. They don't change. We change. When we face death, we change. And we change because we're then able to see the full picture of the person, not just the negativity. but also the positivity and the light in the person. I think it's a lesson I take with me tonight and take with us here in this room, because if we are to bless someone, then we have to bless the entirety of the person, not just one negative aspect, saying, oh, you're a crook, I wish you'd become a more honest man. No, we have to now look at the entirety of the person. Now, okay, so you may have heard of this Israeli couple that is running a very successful falafel store in New York City, and make about $300,000 a year, which is pretty good for a small falafel store. And the IRS immediately catches it and says that this doesn't make sense. They go and visit it, and they ask to see the accounting. The couple says, well, yeah, all of our books, I should switch this off. All of our books, I'm going to switch it off. See? All of our books are open, everything transparent. You can go and watch whatever you want, you know, have nothing to hide. All right. So they go and they find everything's correct except for one little expense, and that is that they spend about $60,000 a year on trips to Israel. That year they had 28 trips to Israel. Couldn't understand. What? You're a small falafel store? Why all these trips? They listed as business expenses? How dare you? The Israeli couple says, you don't understand. We're not just a good falafel store that invite guests here, but we also deliver. We deliver all the way to Israel, and therefore the business expenses. But in order to really, you know, people bless, just to speak of the notion of blessing, people bless, and it's a beautiful thing. But we have to deliver the blessing, make sure that it really pertains to the person and help him actualize it, not just bless the person himself with empty words. And I think this is exactly the idea behind the most famous blessing in Judaism. It's fascinating, because I'm sure you remember your parents or your grandparents blessing you with that particular blessing. I remember fondly my father. Until today, we speak to each other every Friday, and he whispers that blessing in my ears through the phone. What blessing am I speaking about? The priestly blessing, that's right, the Birkat Kohanim, where we say, Yevarechecha Hashem ve'yishmerecha, may God bless you and protect you. Yair Hashem panav elecha v'chuneka, may God shine His face upon you and give you grace. Ve'asem lecha shalom, and He should give you peace. Now, why has that blessing, think about this, why has that blessing become the most prominent blessing in Judaism? There are many, many other blessings. Moses, before he passes away, he gives most beautiful blessings to the 12 tribes. Why don't we use some of those? Why don't we use the blessings that Abraham gave his own children? Where have those blessings disappeared? Or maybe the most controversial blessings in the Torah, when Jacob, remember, stole Isaac's blessing. Maybe that's the most special. He had to steal it after all. So why not use that blessing? But no, we use a blessing that was pronounced by the priest each and every day in the temple, and that has become the most famous of all and the most important of all. Why? But I think that is because that blessing, as divided in three as it is, holds the three keys to a purposeful, meaningful, and fulfilling life. And therefore it was chosen as the paramount blessing. How so? Well, the first part, Yevarechecha Hashem ve'yishmerecha, may God bless you and protect you. What's the key word in that blessing? Not to bless you, but I believe the protect you. What does that mean? Protect you? Protect you from harm? Maybe that's on the surface, the meaning. But I believe that as Nachmanides teaches about this blessing, it's not just to protect you from harm, but it is to protect the blessings themselves. Because sometimes we are given blessings in life, and we have the astonishing ability to turn them into curses. God gives us all that we truly desire, all that we truly need, and we somehow become blind to them, or we take them and distort them. Take the blessing of affluence, of wealth, that is very often taken and simply distorted. You see, and we think that this is it, and it blinds us. It does not allow us To really focus on that entirety of life as we spoke about before. You know, they said that yeah, it's true. Money is a blessing, but money can't buy everything. It can buy a bed, but it can't buy rest. It can buy blood, but it can't buy life. It can buy a clock, but it can't buy time. It can buy Facebook friends, but it can't buy friendships. It can't buy love. Sometimes we're so immersed in that we forget to look at the whole picture. And that blessing itself becomes a curse. So we ask God that first and foremost, before we begin life, we have to know how to realize that these blessings are there in order to empower us and not to paralyze us. It's an important thought to remember. And I must say that I read not too long ago, but you may have heard of her. There's a nurse who became a journalist after 30 years of nursing, who writes now for The Guardian, the Guardian of Great Britain. Anyway, she wrote not too long ago an article that speaks of the 5 top regrets that were pronounced to her by people on a deathbed throughout her career as a nurse for 30 years. You know what regret number 1 was? Regret number 1, people were dying. And many said to her, we regret that we have become that which we are not. We've tried to live someone else's life. God has given us so much that we got lost in that so much. That's regret number 1. Regret number 2 is what? And that's mostly by men, by the way. That's what she writes. Is that we wish we could have spent more time with our family. That's regret number 2. Regret number 3, be surprised. Maybe it's a unique thing just for Great Britain. But she said that people told her that they wish they could have expressed their feelings a little more. They would have the liberty to express those feelings a little more. People hide their feelings and sometimes it's not good. But anyway, these are the 3 top regrets, which again reminds us that if we have blessings, let us cherish them, appreciate them, and never turn them, God forbid, into curses. That's the V'yishmerecha part number 1. Part number 2 is Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'chuneka. May God shine His face upon you and give you grace. In my humble opinion, that's a false translation. V'chuneka, I think that's the key to that second part of the blessing, does not mean and give you grace. But the Talmud says something quite beautiful about this word, chuneka. V'chuneka ma'asher chanancha Hashem. It uses the word chuneka, looks at the root word, and speaks of its meaning as the skill, the talent that God has given you. In other words, what this blessing, the second part of the blessing is saying, is that you should know what your skills and your talents are. Because if you do not know what your skills and talents are, you cannot know who you are, and therefore you cannot be blessed. Chuneka again means skills, that which God has given you. And that, I believe, is another step to achieving that life of nobility and purpose. We have to know who we are. We have to know what our skills are. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, God created me for this purpose, for that skill, for that gift that He has given me to actualize it. So let's run with it all the way. You know, I'm reminded of the story of one of the great composers who's into music here, classical music particularly. But if you are into classical music, you may have heard of Arturo Toscanini. Arturo Toscanini was one of the great composers of the late 19th and 20th century. He was Italian. And he was really a sought-after composer to perform all around the world. But Arturo Toscanini had, for a good few years, a right-hand man who was tasked to write a biography of Arturo Toscanini. And one night he heard that Arturo is free. He doesn't have a concert, he doesn't have anything happening. So he said to Arturo, do you mind if I come and interview you that night? That's a perfect night, you have nothing going on, I see it on your schedule. Arturo Toscanini said, look, I prefer you do not come tonight, because I was actually supposed to conduct a concert overseas. Fortunately, I was not able to go, but I still would like to listen to it via the radio waves, to see how the guy who took my place really did. So the guy said, well, Arturo, this is the perfect time. to see you in action, to write about how you react to music that you should have conducted. Do you mind if I come and join you and just watch you? Arturo said, yes, I don't mind, but you have to promise me, you have to be silent, okay? Silence is the name of the game. Don't distract me, I'll be completely engrossed in this music. He promises he'll be silent. That night he appears on the doorsteps of Arturo Toscanini, who welcomes him home. The concert is about to begin. Arturo Toscanini switches on the radio, he listens to it intensely from beginning to end. And when it ends, his right-hand man says, so Arturo, what did you think of it? Did the guy who took your place do a good job? Arturo said it wasn't his fault, but this symphony was supposed to have 15 violins, and that only had 14 violins tonight, so I'm quite upset, quite distraught. The man was amazed. How could he tell from listening to radio waves that somewhere overseas there was a concert in which there were only 14 violins and not 15? That's quite amazing. He didn't believe him. The next morning he calls that place and says, really, were you missing a violin? A violinist? They said to him, yes, how did you know? So Arturo told me he listened to it and he was able to identify that. He was completely amazed. So he turned back to Arturo and said, Arturo, how did you know? Fine, you're a great composer, but can you really recognize that? And he answered something quite powerful. He said to him, well, look, you're part of the crowd, so for you everything sounds beautiful. But I'm the conductor, and I'm aware of each and every instrument. God, too, is the conductor. We may think that our skills amount to naught, but He wants our violin to be played. He wants those talents to be actualized. This is the purpose, and this is the blessing. Vichuneka. Know who you are. Know those chen, those gifts that God has given you. And I love the Hebrew language, not because it's a beautiful language, it really is, and it's a poetic language, and the lovers among us will also say that it's a romantic language, believe it or not. I think that's why the Song of Songs could really only have been written in Hebrew. It's tremendously romantic. I don't speak it, but there's apparently only one language that is as romantic as the Hebrew language, and that is not French. French is also quite romantic, but they think too much of themselves. But I think the Russian language. Do you speak Russian, anyone? Anyway, the Russian language apparently is a very romantic language. But vichuneka, just going back to that word, so as we said, does not only refer to skill, but if we look at the word itself, chen refers to a particular charm that comes from within. Charm that comes from within. Not a charm that you put on yourselves. Charm that comes from within. That's really what it refers to. In the context of the Bible, you'll find that word quite a few times. Most notably in the song of the woman of valor, Eshet Chayil, where we speak of chen, the charm that comes from within. And I think it's quite beautiful, because if you are able to actualize that skill, that talent that you were born with, and thereby to fulfill your life's purpose, then that charm will emanate, will shine unreservedly. That charm that you were born with too will explode. I think that's the idea of the second part of this blessing. And then we have a third blessing, which is maybe the most complex of all. And we say that Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. God should turn His head, literally, should turn His head towards you and bless you with shalom, with peace. What does that mean? God should turn His head towards you and bless you with peace. Why does He have to turn His head towards you? Why don't He just bless you with peace? And I believe that here we're speaking about a unique peace. See, peace again in Hebrew does not just shalom does not just mean peace in Hebrew, but shalom also comes from the word shleimut, which means wholesomeness, completion, totality. And in order to achieve completeness, wholesomeness in life, we have to be wholesome not just with ourselves, with who we are, with the skills that we have, but also with God. And as He turns our face towards us, we turn our face. As He turns His face, towards us, we turn our face towards Him. And that synergy is what creates that full shlemut, that full completion. Let me explain. And I have to explain again via, I hope you don't mind, via another story. But we spoke about Olympics last time, remember that? So there's another, I'm big into Olympics because it speaks of the human condition itself, and the many stories and lessons that we can learn from stories of the Olympics. But you may remember this, 1992, the Olympics were in Barcelona, Spain. In Barcelona, Spain, there was a gold medalist who people thought that no one could really achieve his results. He was going to win gold medal after gold medal after gold medal for all the sprinting competitions, mainly the 200 meters and the 400 meters. His name was Derek Redmond. He was a sprinter from Great Britain, and he had won already multiple gold medals during the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. And then, when he had to race the 400 meters race, something horrific happened. In the middle of the race, you see him on camera, you can YouTube it. You see him on camera, and all of a sudden, he collapses on the floor. Later they learned that he had torn a hamstring. But then all of a sudden, something shocking happens. He tries to get up, he can't. And out of the crowd, a man comes running towards him. Security thought at first that this was an attacker. But very quickly they learned that it was none other than his father. None other than his father. And you see it on the YouTube, it's the most moving scene. But there comes his father and carries him. He carries him to the finish line. People were moved, people were in tears. But someone said, you see, why did he have to carry him to the finish line? After all, he had lost the race. It was clear. And then the father responded so beautifully. He said, well, yes, I had to carry him to the finish line. You know why? Because he had to finish his race. Not the other people's race. His race. And for him to finish his race, he had to cross the finish line. My friends, in life, we have to finish our race. But sometimes it's so hard. Sometimes we too collapse. But then that's what the blessing says. God turns His face towards us. And sometimes carries us through the pain. Carries us through the suffering. And He's able to truly complete our race. And therefore make us complete. My dear Rabbi Dean Steinsaltz, I mentioned quite often. He's the main source of inspiration to me. A world scholar who translated the entire Talmud, the first one to expose it to the world, a closed world that is now available to all, thanks to his translation and commentary. And really a genius of the highest order. But I remember him telling us, as students in his high school yeshiva, that he said to us one day, he said that line time and time again. He said, you know what the difference is between a 20-year-old, a 40-year-old, and a 60-year-old is? What would you say?
Knees.
Less hair.
Less hair. Yeah, go gray hair. Yeah, fine. Okay. But seriously, what would you say? 20-year-old, 40-year-old, 60-year-old?
20 years.
20 years. Fine.
Experience.
Experience. All right. Well, this is what he would say, and it stays with me until this very day. He says, you see, when you're 20 years old, your big question of life is, how can I fit in? How can I fit into society and be the cool guy also? At the age of 40 years old, you say, well, the heck with the world, I'll be who I am. And at the age of 60, you realize, well, no one was looking at me in the first place. But why wait till 60? Why wait till 60 if no one's looking at me in the first place? If I have to live someone else's life, what's the point? So let me be 60 when I'm 18, when I'm 20, when I'm 25. It's never too late. We have to live that life of quiet confidence and esteem in who we are. And then we'll be complete with ourselves and complete with God. But I want to just speak of one additional meaning to the word shalom. Shalom, we said, means peace. Shalom, we said means shlemut, completion. But shalom as the commentaries explain, primarily a rabbi from Morocco, Rabbi Chaim Ben Atad, or Chaim, explains that shalom is a combination of two Hebrew words. You know what words? Anyone speak Hebrew? Shalom, shel means of, and then you have the mem vav, shel mi, or shel mu or mi is the same word, which is of who. In order to live in peace, Nachmanides teaches, you have to be able to answer the question of who. In other words, who do you belong to? What are your roots? As Winston Churchill so famously said, you cannot know where you are going if you do not know where you came from. Of who? A person who lives in peace is a person who is able to ask the question of who? Shel mi, shel mu, which is the exact word shalom. What does it mean? What it means is that we have to understand also that a part of ourselves is in our parents. Part of our parents is in us. Not just our parents, but our ancestors. And therefore a part of our identity is not just the skills, not just the gifts that God has given us, but it is also the heritage that we have inherited. The heritage from our parents, that is an integral part of our identity. In order to live in peace, we have to turn to God too. Turn to the God of our forefathers. Turn to the God of our parents. See the values, see the tradition, see the heritage that they too have given us. And then we'll truly be shalom, in peace. And for that, as I said, I just came from a Shiva home and that story popped in my mind. But there's a story that I personally experienced. But I was, about 3 years ago, I was called to visit a Holocaust survivor who was dying on his deathbed. And I held his hand and I asked him, Moshe, that was his name, Moshe, what has kept you going? You've suffered so much from what I hear. What has kept you going in life? What has given you that zest that everyone is talking about? And he said, I'll tell you what's kept me going. And that what's kept me going is a line from my mother. It was 1940. And as I was about to be snatched from my parents, my mother knew that. And a day or two before the Nazis came to our town, she called me and she said, you should know, life is like a play. My mother, he said, loved theater. So she compared everything to theater, but now she compared life to theater. Why is it like a play? Because everyone has a role. Everyone is given a role. And it is our duty as actors in that play to play our role to the fullest. So she then grabbed my hand, Moshe tells me, and says, Moshe, I don't know if I'll ever see you again. The Nazis are marching into our town any minute now. But even if I disappear, know that because life is like a play, I want you to play your role to the fullest. And know also that just like a play, the actors don't vanish. They just go behind the scenes. So I'll be cheering you if I have to go from behind the scenes. That's what has kept me going. And I remember telling him, Moshe, there's a postscript to that play. And the postscript is that we also know that just like in a theater, when a play ends, all the actors come back to stage. They hold their hands and take a final bow, right? Your mother will come back. She'll hold your hands. We believe in Judaism in the resurrection of the dead. She'll hold your hand and together with you take a final bow and beam with joy. And she'll beam with joy because you have lived a part of her life and she has lived in you until this very moment. And I think that's crucial for peace. We have to know of who, where we came from. It's not just good enough to not turn the blessings into curses. It's not just good enough to actualize our skills, know who we are obviously, and then actualize our skills and not care about anyone because no one's looking at us in the first place as mentioned. But we also have to know the tree, the roots from where we came from, and know what our parents would like from us as they are watching us behind the stage. And I must conclude, and I'll conclude just So another story that I actually heard from an elderly Hasidic Jew in Jerusalem, someone who was a pious man. I remember this Jew. I don't mean to deviate, but I remember this Jew. I'm bumping into him into an old synagogue in the old city of Jerusalem, and the first thing he said to me, a Hasidic Jew with a big white beard, he was a hunchback, but something about him showed. You meet people like that, something about them, you notice how special they are. And I remember the first thing, I introduced myself. He was impatient, a seeker of truth. But first thing he said to me, well, what's your name? And then he said to me, well, why aren't you living up to your name? So I said, what do you mean? So I told him, my name is Pinchas. Pinchas was, as you may know in the Bible, was a person who was passionate about God, truly passionate about God. I was then, maybe not so passionate about God. So he says, why aren't you living up to your name? But this was a man who struck me with his light shining from his face, but also with his fire. But eventually I heard that each time he would he would pray with the congregation, and the congregation would reach the priestly blessing, as we do every single day in the morning prayers, and especially every Shabbat. He would step out of the congregation and then come back only after the priestly blessing ended. So I asked him, why? Why so? You're a devout Jew, you're a devout worshipper, why don't you pray with the congregation during the priestly blessing? Then he told me his story, a story that has stayed with me, and I think of it because this is what it means to live those three blessings fully. But he said to me, look, I'll tell you why. And that is because I was in Bergen-Belsen. I was in Bergen-Belsen. I too was tortured by the Nazis. And in Bergen-Belsen, one day we decided to celebrate Passover. We celebrated Passover with a few slices of potatoes. That's all we had, but we sang the Manishtana and so on. And then the Nazis caught us. It was dark, the middle of the night, but they heard us and they caught us. Nazi officer stormed into our barrack and he said, well, who's responsible for this? If you don't tell me who's responsible for this, I'll kill all of you. The rabbi who was among them, this old man tells me, said it was me. He of course didn't want anyone to get in trouble. It was me. The Nazi officer said, well, your turn will come tomorrow morning. We'll be able to execute you in public so that people will know never to do this again. They put him on the stage in the morning, about to execute him, and then they told him, look, we'll give you one last wish. The rabbi happened to be a Kohen. So he told the Nazi officer, well, before you execute me, I'd like to bless my congregation with the priestly blessing. He closed his eyes and said those words, Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, with the most intense focus that I've ever seen. He finished the blessing and they hung him in public. But since then he tells me I can never hear another priestly blessing. I just can't. The song, the blessing, the words of my rabbi in Bergen-Belsen are still ringing in my ears. He was a man who knew of who. He knew that that's where he came from. And he knew how to transform those blessings into actualization of true blessings. And then live his life according to them, because he was complete with himself, complete with his God, and complete with his roots. And I believe that if we wish to truly live that life of nobility and purpose, as Amy said, we must connect to those ideas, to those three separate blessings. Know that the blessings of God are blessings that are showered upon us each and every day. Know that we have skills, no matter who you are, no matter if you're the 15th violin, you still have that blessing and you can actualize it, and you should actualize it. And know that in order to live in peace, you have to be complete with yourself, complete with God, the God that is carrying you when you fall, but also complete with your roots, because that is a part of who you are. And last but not least, this blessing is often responded by V'samu et Shemi al Bnei Yisrael v'ani avarechem. Maybe your congregation does it. Some congregations respond to this blessing with the word V'samu et Shemi al Bnei Yisrael v'ani avarechem, which means I will place the name of the Jews up high, and I will bless them. In other words, we take ourselves, we take the congregation, and we elevate it. And we elevate it with words of gratitude. Perhaps because the key to all of this is to remain forever thankful. To remain forever thankful. Thankful for our blessings. Thankful for the blessings that we ought to actualize. And then truly live that life of nobility and purpose. You know, there was a research, and that's really, this is the last thought, but there was a research done about 6 years ago. You can look it up. And I read it in a booklet of neurology. But apparently that there's this sickness, I forget the name, and maybe the doctors here among us can help me. There's a sickness that some people wake up in the morning, and as soon as they get up from bed, they faint. You know what I'm talking about? They lose their consciousness and they faint. What?
Postural hypertension.
Oh, thank you. So, thank you. Say that I'll never be able to repeat that. But they faint. So, apparently research shows that if a person suffers from that condition, he has to wait 12 seconds. It takes time. It's a matter of the blood circulating back to the head, and so on. And therefore, he has to wait 12 seconds, wake up slowly, and then he'll be able to get up just fine. They revealed that solution in a neurological convention. One of the doctors was an observant Jew. And he said, 1 second. Now it makes sense. According to Judaism, the first prayer you should say as soon as you open your eyes is a prayer of Modeh Ani, prayer of gratitude. I thank you, God, for restoring my soul in me. That prayer has 12 words. If you say it slowly, with great intention, 12 seconds go by. I understand now. The key to life is gratitude. And if that gratitude of just 12 seconds, is implemented in those 3 blessings, then no doubt we will find ourselves, after 120 years, beaming with joy also on that stage, taking our final bow. I thank you. Okay, questions? If there are any, I hope they are, but let me open it up. There could really be questions on anything, not just on what we spoke about. What? Alan is a Cohen. Any other Cohens? He's a Cohen. Maybe we'll conclude this by passing the microphone to you, and you can bless us with that blessing.
I was talking about the Hebrew name is Raphaim.
Oh, that's beautiful.
My grandfather.
Oh, very nice. It's a common. His Hebrew name is Rachamim, which means compassion, but it's a common name in the Sephardic world, and I would say especially in the North African world, less in the Syrian, Turkish, Sephardic. What? Turkish also. Oh, so do you speak Ladino?
My grandfather, yeah.
Oh yeah? So
He's getting excited.
I'm getting excited. I'll tell you why also, because I have a dear friend in Atlanta. His last name is Sabi Varon. You may know the name. He's also a Turkish Jew, Turkish Sephardic Jew. He speaks Ladino fluently, but one of my favorite Sephardic songs comes from Turkey in Ladino. It's called Bendigamos. Are you familiar with that? No? That's why I'm excited. Bendigamos, maybe we would have sung it together.
Okay, you sing it by yourself.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Teach us the song.
No, please. Sing, I know my skills and I know what my skills are not. So that's part of the blessings too. I don't want to break the windows here. Yes, Louis.
So we can say that priestly blessings, even though we're not quite in, because normally thought to be quite in, to say priestly blessings.
Absolutely, yes. As I said, parents say that blessing to their children. There's a custom each and every Friday night on Shabbat. And if not then on the eve of Yom Kippur, that blessing is recited.
Every day too.
Every day it's recited in the morning prayer, yeah. 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 Yes.
When the priestly blessing is given in the synagogue, we're not supposed to look on the Kohanim. Why is that?
Oh, good question. Why did everyone hear the question? Why can we not look at the Kohanim while they're giving us the blessing? I think the idea is beautiful. And that is because we want to connect, not to the messenger, but to the message. If we look at the Kohanim, we're connecting to the messenger, and that misses the point. I'll never forget, I have stories like that made a mark on me throughout my life. But when I was a rabbinic student in Italy, Milano, Italy, all of a sudden, a homeless guy who was Jewish, happened to be Jewish, walks into our yeshiva where we studied, and he notices that there was, it was beautiful, he notices that there was a picture of a great rabbi who was praying like this. Okay? And he immediately went to the picture, entered the room, barely paused, immediately went to the picture. He says, you see, that's the problem with you rabbinic students. You focus too much on the hands instead of the direction of the hands. And I took that with me forever. You have to connect to the message, not to the messenger. And that's really why we don't look at the Kohanim. Yes?
So how about the prayer involving Isaac? You know, you said most people think about that as being the most important prayer. So where would that prayer stand in the lexicon of prayers?
Who am I to say? Where would the prayer of Isaac stand in the lexicon of prayers? I can't answer that question. It's like, what do you prefer? Dark chocolate or milk chocolate? Oranges or apples? Bananas or avocados? I don't know. It's today. They're both fruits. They're both blessings. I don't know. They each have a different purpose.
See, I always wondered whether that was positive or a negative thing. Because for one brother it was positive, and the other was negative, but it was done by deception.
Yeah, I mean, both blessings are positive, but one blessing is much more encompassing. One blessing, Jacob's blessing, the one that he stole, is much more encompassing than, in other words, it speaks of so many more things than the blessing towards Esau, which only blesses him as a worker, as a person of the land, who works the land. While Jacob is blessed also spiritually. But look, I don't know. Both blessings I'll take any blessing any day. Yeah. So, we spoke about the Hebrew language. Some words have multiple meanings. Do you know what the word for blessing is in Hebrew? Bracha, right. Bracha. Do you know what that means also in Hebrew? Bracha also comes from the word berech. Do you know what that means? Need. Why? What's the connection between blessing and need? What? Thank you. Thank you, that's right, the bending. In order to be blessed, you need to be humble. You need to be able to bend and receive that blessing. If you're a know-it-all and as arrogant as who knows who, there's no room for blessings. There's no room for God to provide any blessings. You cover every atom of the room. But you need to be able to bend sometimes to be able to receive God's blessings. You know, they say that one of the miracles in the temple, in the Jerusalem temple, was that people from all over the world came, and of course there was no room for them in the room, and they stood like sardines, one on top of each other. But when it's time to bend, to bow down to God, all of a sudden they all had room. Miracle. But There's a beautiful interpretation that I heard from Rabbi Lapin in Seattle, Daniel Lapin. He once told me that, do you know why? Because if you're standing as an arrogant man, there's never any room. But if you bow down, then there's plenty of room for everybody. And that's why there was room in the temple when they bowed down. It's a nice, it's that idea of bracha and berech. Any other questions? Nothing? Okay.
I guess my take on that.
Yeah.
Is we all God gave us gifts, and it's how you discover it and how you get I know.
Right. No. How do you discover your gifts, your inner gifts? How do you know what God really has given you? I think I spoke about this very briefly last time, but I call it the POP theory. POP, P-O-P-P. And you have to think of four things. The first P speaks of your personality. Everyone's personality is different. Not just, your moods, for example, your likings, and so on. Personality. That's number one. That's the first thing you have to ask yourself. What type of personality do I have? Second, the O stands for opportunities. Everyone's presented with different opportunities in life. We have to know what are our opportunities. The opportunities we have here in America are different than the opportunities people have in Africa. So the opportunities that God presents in front of us. And these are daily opportunities. Then the second P, P-O-P, stands for people. The people that we meet are part of that purpose that we should actualize, the friendships that we should develop, and so on, or the impact that we should have. Even people as strangers that we meet in the supermarket, there's a reason why we met them. Maybe to smile at them and brighten their day. And then the final P is we said people and places we go to. If we find ourselves stuck in the airport, there's a reason for that. Part of our purpose. It's like in traffic, there's a reason for that. So that's another way to ask at all times, really, what my purpose is and what my gifts are and how they should be channeled. Good question. Anything else? Do you want to end with the priestly blessing since you're a Kohen? Anna? Come on, that would be a nice way.
We won't look at you.
Yeah. No, I'll give you one. Yeah.
So I'm going to forget some of it too. Putting me on the spot here.
No.
Yivarechacha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
Amen.
Yair panav enecha v'yichonecha.
Amen. Yisrael,
Yisrael Adonai panav elecha v'yasem v'shalom.
Amen. Thank you. And thank you, Amy. Thank you very much.